Decoded.
Ever feel like you're just constantly putting out fires as a parent? You know, 1 second it's whining, then it's too much screen time, then siblings fighting.
Oh, yeah, like playing whack-a-mole, right?
Exactly. And you're just thinking, where's the instruction manual? Well, welcome to Book Decoded, the podcast where we try to find some of those answers in books.
And today we're looking at Nicole Runyon's Free to Fly.
That's right. We're going to unpack the big ideas from her work, trying to pull out insights that can, well, help us raise grounded, independent kids in this pretty crazy modern world.
And what's great is Runyon isn't just theorizing. She's a therapist, worked with families for years. She's seen firsthand how things, especially technology, are really changing childhood.
Yeah, so our mission here is to really distill those key learnings, the practical stuff, How do we raise healthy kids now when things look so different?
And she brings her own parenting journey into it, too, which makes it feel very real.
Totally. Plus, people like Lenore Skenazy, the free-range kids person, and Dr. Delia McCabe, a neuroscientist, they've endorsed the book, so it's got some serious weight behind it.
So diving in, one of the biggest themes Runyon tackles is just the sheer impact of technology on kids' mental health, on their development.
Right. And she drops this statistic that's pretty mind-blowing.
The 90% one.
Yeah, that 90% of brain development happens before a child even turns 6.
Wow. Makes you really stop and think about what those early experiences, especially with screens, might be doing, doesn't it?
It really does. And she connects this to something fascinating, those early baby movements, the reflexes.
Primitive reflexes.
Exactly. She says they're not random. They're actually like the foundation.
Yep.
Building blocks for cognition, social skills, even their sense of self.
And her concern is that all these modern baby gadgets,
like the smart bassinets that kind of strap them in, or walkers, jumpers.
Yeah, things that restrict that natural movement. She suggests they might actually be getting in the way of this crucial developmental process.
Which makes you question those promises, right? Like a smart bassinet says more sleep. Maybe it soothes the baby.
But Runyon's asking, is it hindering those innate reflexes, that ability to explore? It kind of reminds you of those monkey studies where lack of real interaction caused issues later on.
Right. It raises the question, can a machine really replace that human touch, that interaction needed for development?
And she sees evidence in the real world. She talks about therapists, PTs, OTs, speech therapists noticing more delays.
In young kids?
Yeah. Things like poor fine motor skills, pencil grip issues, weird walking patterns sometimes with no clear medical cause.
And it seems to line up with the increase in screen time.
Exactly. So her message is pretty clear. Babies and toddlers need freedom to move, and they need us, the parents, engaging with them. That's irreplaceable.
Okay, so moving from early development, she also gets into something really thought-provoking about how we view childhood challenges.
You mean the tendency to pathologize?
Yeah, the quickness maybe to label kids. She mentions terms like neurodivergent and worries that sometimes these labels might unintentionally suggest a child can't change or grow beyond it.
Like it becomes a fixed state, almost.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And that kids might even internalize it.
Yeah.
Use it, maybe unconsciously, as a reason to avoid tough stuff. Like the chill room example she gives kids using it to skip class.
So the diagnosis explains, but it shouldn't be an excuse. That distinction is key.
Right. And this actually led her to shift her own focus in therapy.
From working primarily with the child
to working more with the parents. She found that addressing the parent dynamics, their own well-being, often helped the child improve much faster.
That makes a lot of sense, the whole family system.
She tells this story, it's really illustrative, about a family where the parents just weren't on the same page. Different rules, no united front.
And the kids figured out fast, I bet.
Oh, yeah. Played one parent against the other. Total chaos, exhausted parents. But when the parents focused on their relationship, getting aligned,
the kids' behavior shifted.
Exactly. It just shows how connected it all is.
She also raises a subtle point about therapy itself. That while it's vital, if it's only about talking and ruminating, without learning to actually sit with discomfort and do the hard work of childhood tasks,
it might not lead to lasting change.
Yeah, that seems to be her caution, which ties into another core idea, the parent as the family leader.
And as a mirror, right.
Exactly. She really emphasizes that the parent's health, mental, emotional, sets the tone. It directly impacts the kids.
And that line, your children are a mirror reflecting your childhood wounds. Whew.
That's a big one.
It is. But it's not about blame. It's about awareness. The importance of parents doing their own work on unresolved stuff from their past
Because sometimes the struggles you have parenting a kid at a certain age,
might echo your own difficulties at that same age. It's fascinating.
so there's no magic script. It's about self-reflection, doing that hard work. And she stresses parents needing to be okay with their own discomfort. Right, so you can hold space for your child's discomfort rather than immediately trying to fix it or make it go away.
And this idea of energy transfer.
That what the parent is feeling underneath is often more powerful than what they say or do. Kids just pick up on that vibe.
So parents need to be like the container, manage their own emotions.
Precisely. Be that stable presence. There's that quote she shares from a mentor.
Oh, the one about mistakes. That is a pity. Your parents' mistakes make you stronger.
Yeah. It's permission to be imperfect, basically. Acknowledge mistakes to your kids. It builds their resilience.
And her favorite question for parents. What happens to you when your child does whatever the behavior is?
So revealing. It forces that self-reflection, like the dad who just walked away during discipline because he got overwhelmed.
Yeah, it puts the focus back on the parent's reaction.
Okay, so all this kind of sets up her framework for development, and it starts with movement.
Right. Movement as the scaffolding for the brain. That quote from Dr. Mantini. Movement scaffolds the brain for growth.
It all comes back to those primitive reflexes we talked about earlier. They're the base layer of that scaffold.
These automatic responses, like the rooting reflex baby turns head when cheek is touched.
Helps them find food, survival. But they need to integrate, become voluntary movements as the brain matures.
And if movement is restricted early on, like by too much time and devices,
that integration process might get disrupted. It can affect everything that builds on top of it.
which leads perfectly into the next big piece, letting kids feel discomfort.
Yes. Not rescuing them from every little struggle. It sounds counterintuitive maybe, but it's crucial for building resilience.
She uses that analogy of having food stuck in your teeth.
Right. You might not even know it's there until you look in the mirror or someone points it out. Discomfort signals something needs attention, something needs figuring out.
And if we constantly shield kids from feeling frustrated or sad or bored,
We rob them of the chance to learn they can handle it, to develop that self-trust.
and she links this directly to the rise in anxiety we're seeing.
Absolutely. The stats are worrying. If kids don't practice working through challenges, they don't build that inner confidence.
Anxiety often comes from feeling powerless.
Right. Exactly. And play is the antidote, in a way. Play is where kids test things out, take small risks, feel in control. It builds competence.
Even just struggling to tie shoes and finally getting it, that's a win. That builds self-trust.
And can even help with things like separation anxiety, unless there are deeper issues like insecure attachment, of course.
Now, she also touches briefly on how different generations, boomers, Gen X, millennials, etc., have approached parenting and tech differently.
Yeah, that sort of pendulum swing effect you see in parenting trends.
And she connects some of this to really serious concerns, like the rising suicide rates in young people.
It's heartbreaking. Her perspective suggests it might relate partly to a decreased ability to cope with difficult feelings, maybe a lack of hope. That Leslie Wyrick quote about hope being essential.
It hits hard. And it makes you wonder if early, constant screen use trains kids to just check out whenever things feel bad.
Like an escape mechanism that prevents them from learning to actually manage the feeling. Plus, screens are addictive. They hijack the brain's reward system.
So what can parents actually do? What are Runyon's takeaways here?
Well, first, just awareness. Bringing awareness to how much screens are used by the whole family, not just the kids.
Good point. And setting boundaries around tech isn't about punishment.
No, she frames it as building connection, building trust. It shows you care about their well-being beyond just the immediate convenience.
And ultimately, it's the parent's job to keep kids safe, even if it means making unpopular decisions about technology.
Right. She does offer some guidelines, like maybe no tablets or smartphones before age 5, but the core message is parental responsibility and informed choice.
She also mentions the real dangers online, like predators, and the need for open communication, especially with teens.
Definitely. And she prepares parents for the fact that when you do limit screens, kids might have withdrawal symptoms. It might be tough initially.
But that's the moment to reconnect, to fill that time with other things, together as a family.
Exactly. Replace screen time with connection time.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, the big message from Free to Fly seems to be, well, raising healthy, independent kids today really requires being intentional.
Yeah, prioritizing real-world experience, letting kids build resilience by facing challenges, understanding technology's pull.
And maybe most importantly, parents doing their own inner work, being self-aware, managing our own emotions.
It all comes back to that parental leadership and modeling.
So here's a thought to leave you with. What's maybe one small change you could make starting today to shift the balance in your family a little more towards real connection and maybe a little less screen dependence?
And related to that, maybe reflect on your own relationship with technology. How might that be influencing your kids?
If this discussion resonated with you, we definitely encourage you to check out Nicole Runyon's book, Free to Fly, for a much deeper exploration.
Yeah, and she has bonus materials on her website too, which could be helpful. It's nicole-runyon.mickajabi.com/bonus-material. Might help assess where your family's at.
Great resource. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to this book decoded discussion.
We hope you found it insightful. Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep learning.